So then, after getting interested in Shaw and wanting to write about him, I noticed one of his contemporaries was Oscar Wilde. Shaw is usually regarded as the second greatest playwright in the English language after Shakespeare, but Wilde was regarded as the greatest wit of his generation. And these guys were contemporaries, and I wondered what it would be like to hear a conversation between them. I thought that must have been terrific. And once I started researching, I found that there was a record of the relationships between Shaw and Wilde. Frank Harris, who was a magazine publisher, who published pieces by both Shaw and Wilde. After Wilde's death, he wrote a biography of Oscar Wilde, and he asked Shaw for his reminiscences of Wilde. And Shaw wrote a long letter which got published as the last chapter of Harris's book. And he told all about Oscar Wilde and his relationship. And it turns out that even though the two of them were leading playwrights in London in the 1890s, their paths didn't cross all that often. And they were always kind of awkward around one another. So the great battle of matching wits never really took place. So I figured if it didn't happen in real life, well, maybe it could happen in something I wrote. And so then I had to do some research, a lot of research on these guys. And pretty soon I figured out that I wanted the plot to be centered around the romance between Shaw and the woman he married, Charlotte Payne Townsend. He married her at the ripe old age of 40. And it wasn't long after reading about Shaw that I came across Shaw's best friend, Sidney Webb, and his relationship with Beatrice Potter. Beatrice was an extraordinary person in her own right, being an upper-class woman who took an interest in social investigation, in the fate of the poor. And as is in the novel, she actually got dressed up to work as a seamstress on the East End of London to do research so she could write her articles. And Sidney was a rather unsexy Cockney intellectual who had risen to leadership of the Fabian Society because of his intelligence and his ability and his hard work. And once I read about them, I said, I can write this story because this is a nerd in love with a hot chick. And I can write that. So that left Wilde here as the observer and commentator on the Fabian romances. And I knew that he had written an essay called The Soul of Man Under Socialism, which is not the usual kind of thing he wrote, and I could use that as an excuse to get him into Bernard Shaw's story.